Exhausted egregores. To entertain a narrative is very different from believing the narrative describes the thing exactly. Sometimes, in order to approach certain concepts, it is necessary to tell a story as though it were true, and hold in mind that the tale is only one possibility, one of many potentials. Providing an account for how we got here should not be interpreted as a testimony. Rather, it is a means of broaching a subject that defies analysis. One life ends, and the bond with form dissolves. The structure of attention that amounts to the individual, the mind, that is not the brain, floats away from the weight of physical attachment. It rises above the immediate concerns that had seemed so important just a moment ago, above the plans and ideas that hold attention, above the values and ideals that color a sense of self. The individual does not rise quickly enough to achieve escape velocity. The weight of regret lingers, so many attachments and fascinations. At first, the mind is diffuse, no more than a cloud. For a while, it is like the air. It moves involuntarily, compelled by the barest shadows of impulse. Eventually, it condenses a little and falls like water to experience a little more. It flows about the landscape of vague impulses, catching whispers of feelings here and there. The mind is paying attention now, and after a time the attention weighs it down. It condenses again to be rooted to a definite stream of human experience. The quality of its nature suits the events particular to a certain branch of humanity. Attention sharpens again, and the mind searches after experience. It feels the character of the patterns, the culture, the people. A focus of attention opens a portal, and just like that, the mind is back in a body. Some individuals do not return to form. They have condensed to the level of people, but remain diffuse. They wander about, pursuing whatever fascination compels them. A story exists about a native shaman in a prison in the US. He would talk about his alcoholism and describe needing to drink to appease the disembodied spirits that followed him around. The spirits were able to experience the buzz via his intoxication. A friend once described listening to binaural beats while he lay next to his sleeping girlfriend. He dozed off and experienced a dream from his girl's perspective, seeing himself as she saw him and experiencing her perception of color and light. The individual is a unique structure of attention. The attention of every individual utilizes shared structures of perception. There is an underlying shared structure informing the experience of all minds, whether they exist in form or outside it. The mind, that is the sum of experience, is outside the physical. The shared structure is composed of the common experiences of all minds. The shared structure precedes the physical. It is because the individual is a unique sequence of attention, and attention is exercised via the shared structure, that there is a limited range of potential relative to any number of individuals. The structure of potential, defined by minds in form, is as real as the physical. The physical stretches into familiar potential and beyond into the unknown. The narrow potential defined by physical form is consciousness. The potential a mind can perceive beyond the physical is supra-consciousness. The potential that is beyond the scope of an individual mind to perceive is unconsciousness. These three levels of awareness equate to the physical, the astral, and the void. The hungry ghost, the spirit with unfinished business still bound to the physical plane, exists in the landscape of potential just beyond the physical. As that landscape is defined by beings in form, it is possible for it to experience in a second-hand way by aligning with people. The hungry ghost is a mind without a body. It has a structure and, by attention, it shifts potential beyond the physical. In certain circumstances, it can influence people, just as the spirits compelled the shaman to drink. For every mind that is held in form, the conscious experience comes via the subforms of the body. The selves perceive at their level of sophistication, and the parameters of their experience are defined by their position within the shared structures of perception. The human form, like all forms, defines a path of attention from the simplest component form through corresponding levels up to the mind seated atop the human. The attention, at each level, utilizes perception of lower levels and refines it to higher meaning. This is why a machine can never be equated to a mind. The place for a mind in form exists in the shared structure and stretches back to the beginning. Being accustomed to embodiment, humans tend to focus on the extremes of experience. They forget that the subtle experience of attention, refined through the body, is desirable in itself. The problem of familiarity is a consequence of consciousness. Novelty is the root of joy, but routine and familiarity with a body lessens the experience of novelty. The solution to the problem of familiarity is to experience a new body when it is desired, and go without a body when it is not wanted. The way the novelty of refined experience is continually renewed, and the downsides of embodiment, such as suffering and pain, are avoided. To think in this way is to make a conceptual leap that could not be anticipated by technological progress. It is to attempt to recognize what existence looks like from a higher level of shared perception. The distinction is something like the difference between animals and men. Animal technology is innovations in how animal bodies function. There is no amount of progress in animal technology that can compete with human technology. Human technology stems from human perception and corresponds to a higher level of shared perception. This understanding can be extended to the level above us, and a picture of human existence as a harvesting operation begins to look plausible. The shared elements of perception are non-local. They are distributed holographically. Egregores are formations within the shared structure created by the attention of minds. Egregores that are controlled by minds at a higher level function as attractors for attention. The refined attention of human minds is harvested via egregores. The most obvious example of an egregore that functions as a conduit for attention is money. Just as the spirits were able to influence the alcoholic shaman into drinking in order to catch a second-hand buzz, the disembodied beings at a higher level are able to harvest the refined attention of many minds. And, just as the experience of the cells of the human body lead to conscious sensation, the experience of many humans leads to embodiment at a higher level. The difference is that the managed harvesting of human attention allows for beings that exist beyond the physical to take on form at will, to renew novelty indefinitely. Now, keeping in mind that this is not an attempt to describe exactly what is occurring, but as an exercise in thinking along certain lines, a picture emerges of the scope of human affairs being managed from above. The individual power players in the human hierarchy may be well versed in international relations theory. They may have studied the exercise of power, the function of economies, and the psychology of the masses. In each case, though, the individual schema is a compromise or consensus formed by an intersection of many considerations. As the considerations change, the exercise of power changes. Beings at a higher level are beyond the physical, that is to say, they exist in the landscape of potential. Whereas the hungry ghost is stuck at the human level and experiences the landscape of potential at the human scale, the higher beings experience potential relative to the world. They perceive the different possibilities that exist given the disposition of all minds in form in this realm. In the same way that the spirits can influence the shaman to drink, the control that higher entities have over egregores enables them to shift the physical world in directions that suit their needs. From the human perspective, it appears that events are the result of individuals and groups planning, reacting, and conspiring. We cannot see how the entire trajectory is altered. They don't need to control individuals directly. They control the structure of individual decision trees. By shifting the attention of those focused on prominent egregores, they shift the whole. We can observe that the progress of knowable history has resulted in the consolidation of egregores. The globalized world defers to the power of a shared financial system. The consolidation of egregores might facilitate the harvesting of human attention, but it creates instabilities. For example, the progress of medical technology was enabled by scientific and financial innovation. Modern medicine made it possible for almost all children to survive beyond the age of 5. As a consequence, deleterious mutations that were previously eliminated are accruing across generations. The consolidation of egregores facilitated the weakening of the human being. If one is able to entertain the view that the world functions as a harvesting operation, then the consolidation of egregores and the problems that result must have a solution. Perhaps, just as the fertility of a field can be restored by allowing it to lay fallow, the shared structure that underlies the human form can also be renewed. The consolidation of egregores is followed by a fragmentation, and novelty is renewed to once again feature prominently in human perception. In this way, the segment of the shared structure of perception particular to human attention can once again develop new patterns of experience. Entertaining a perspective that describes the cyclical management of the human world allows one to view the actions of the human power elite in a new light. Most accounts describing the nefarious machinations of powerful people assume that they are in league with higher powers. The model of humans managing livestock demonstrates that expediency is the rule. The farmer does the thing that suits his ends, and the livestock never see the big picture. The human elite suppose that by gaining an unassailable level of control over the masses, they will achieve apotheosis. If the inevitable result of their pursuits is population reduction and systemic collapse that catalyzes renewal, then they are really perpetuating cycles. The population control measures utilized by the human power elite include manipulations of collective psychology. Conspiracy content is promoted as a means of seeding ideas into the public consciousness. From the perspective of the shared structures of perception, it doesn't matter that the conspiracy content is presented as a warning. The effect is to create egregores that facilitate attention. A segment of the population consumes the content and collectively focuses on the worst-case outcomes relating to a topic, digital ID for instance. In so doing, they have created the very thought forms that make digital ID seem logical to the average person. The human power elite could probably foresee the kinds of manipulations that they would employ being utilized on them. They would necessarily be blind to the methods that originate from a higher level of perception. From the perspective of higher beings, there are no special people. It is expediency and production that determines what must be done. Presenting the view of humanity as akin to a farming operation is not intended to be a negative perspective. The human produces something of value at a higher level. This is not inherently a bad thing. It is for the individual to describe how they pay their attention forward and to what egregoric structure. The fall of one configuration in the shared structure of perception entails a great deal of turmoil, but if it has to be, it has to be. The next iteration will be a new thing. The cycle is a spiral, not a circle.